Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Better Podcast, where we break down the ideas, strategies, and real world decisions behind thoughtful real estate investing in the Triangle. Over the past several episodes, we've spent a lot of time talking about how we think at Better. We've talked about buy right development, the importance of hyperlocal market knowledge, how we evaluate risk, and the frameworks that we use to make investment decisions. But one of the questions we often get is, what does that actually look like on a real project? That's exactly what our summer series is all about. Over the next several episodes, we're going to take you behind the scenes of actual projects in our pipeline and walk through the decisions that shaped each opportunity. The goal for this series is to show how Better evaluates opportunities before we purchase, explain strategic decisions behind our development approach, demonstrate how we think about risk, returns, and investor alignment. It's not simply to show you the final product. We want to walk you through the whole decision making process, including why did we pursue the property, what made it attractive, what were the risks, and how did we structure the project to create value. Each episode will be kind of the same. We'll talk about the opportunity a little bit. We'll talk about the development strategy, and then we'll go into the investment thesis, talking about the financial side of the deal. Who is the opportunity designed for? How do we think about returns, et cetera? Now, why is all of this important for you and for us to share? So one is visibility. Real estate investing sometimes feels like a black box. Investors often see a finished project, a rendering, pictures, before and afters, that kind of stuff, even a timeline, but they don't always get to see all of the decisions that happen. And at Better, we believe those decisions actually matter. So our investors should understand not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it. That's why we have our meetups, our events that we have over time, so people can come and ask us about projects while they're happening, what's going on, and they can kind of dive into the nitty gritty. We believe that that transparency is super important. So sharing our process, our assumptions, and even a lot of the challenges that we encountered all the way, things that we changed and things that we altered throughout the process as the market changed, as the project itself changed, that allows you to have a more transparent look at what it takes to bring a development project from an idea to fruition. So, with all that, let's get started. Today, we're going to start off by talking about the Chamberlin, which is our first build to sell development deal. And when I think about the Chamberlain, one thing that comes to mind is efficiency. And we'll kind of dive into that with both building and financing and that kind of stuff. So, Devin, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about, who Better was at the time and what the opportunity looked like?
Yeah, so Better, we had started really as more of a fixed to rent, refinance, BRRRR, whatever you want to call it, strategy that was going well, and opportunities were just getting harder to find with that strategy. However, we had done our first build to rent from ground up, bought a lot, split it into four. That was our Howard Street project, and things were going well there. We had an understanding that new construction is just a lot easier when you talk about efficiency in a lot of ways, and that's kind of where we kind of shifted. And at the same time, this opportunity came to us, and we said, okay, let's try to do more new construction for sale also, and find deals that work for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so what specifically about the deal, like location, money, like what kind of things really spoke to you right at the beginning?
Yeah. So immediately coming in, this is a premium neighborhood where the opportunity came in. And we had a seller who, I mean, they even knew about how big their backyard was. They didn't really know how it could be utilized. But it was in Northgate Park, which is a nice neighborhood. And it had extra land. And with expanding housing choices, which were some code changes that were done a few years earlier in Durham, we knew before even putting an offer in, just looking at maps, that there was something there. At the same time, there was opportunity from the sellers. They actually had a failed wholesale deal where we came in and were able to get it quickly off market and lock it in. Additionally, there are some due diligence items that are just easy to verify before we actually really had to spend money. And that even before the offer, we had a very strong idea confirming that we had an extra lot here, and knew what we could do with that lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, we hadn't done at Better, we hadn't done a whole lot of buy right development at that time. But in discovering new buy right development, we knew that there were things that we could do on the front end that would limit our risk, right?
Yeah, I mean, I literally went out there with a tape measure, knowing the rules, and I'm like, well, it looks like this is where the fence is, so this is probably the property line. We've got enough distance here off the house. We can put a driveway here. And that's what we did. We put the offer in, and we knew, hey, we got an official survey in that due diligence period and confirmed what our original thesis was on the lot, and moved forward with the purchase. Additionally, we already had rehab experience, so there was an existing house here that we were going to offload relatively quickly. it was probably a medium-sized rehab, I'd say. Nothing super, super structural. It was still low six-figure, rehab, a little bit over 100,000, but, at the purchase price, this allowed us to effectively make a small profit there, offload the house, and get a lot that was free and clear.
Okay. So when you first saw the property, there was just an older house in a nice neighborhood, a little bungalow that looked like everything else. It was in okay shape, right? But probably in need of renovation. And you saw that there was a bunch of land in the back, and you identified that there could be a lot there. And so the plan became, first of all, how do we get access to that lot so we can build a new house? And I think in getting access to that lot, using the existing home that was in the front of the lot as a tool, right? Renovating it, offloading it, and subdividing while you were renovating to get access to that lot, right?
Yeah, we were able to leverage at a very high rate on the existing structure because hard money lenders love fix and flip for whatever reason. Certainly at the time, there actually were more lenders who were willing to do that fix and flip rather than new construction. Since then, it's been a few years. There's actually been a shift. A lot more lenders actually love new construction now.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit because of course people say, "Great, how are you going to buy this house and then have the money to build another house?" So, what did it look like from a financial perspective? I mean, our background is in finance, right? So, kind of when we look at budgeting specifically, maybe not our original expertise, right? But it's something we've gotten better at over time between me and you specifically, but finance is really where our bread and butter is. So, how were we able to take financing and make this a really, really good deal?
Mm. I mean, sort of like I was saying with the hard money, those guys are willing to loan at a relatively high loan to cost, up to 75% of the end value. And so we knew, okay, this thing's going to appraise in the mid 400s. We're actually restricted more towards loan to cost. And on the front end, to get the first phase of the project done, we knew we only needed $60,000 to get through that stage based on the hard money loan.
Okay, so because at that time, and maybe that's not even the case right now, right? Because the hard money lenders, their preferences change. But at the time, they were very into fix and flip, and so they were willing to go super high on your loan to cost. And because you were doing a renovation on the front side while you were splitting off the lot in the back, you were able to get most of that funding, right, up to 90% of that funding to do the renovation, which means you were only coming out of pocket 60,000, and then you had a lot in the back, correct?
Correct. And that 60,000 includes interest, fees, things of that nature.
Exactly. So, I mean, if this was a simple fix and flip, right? I mean, you can kind of look at the financials here. You're kind of coming out of pocket only 60,000, and you're making 12,000 as far as cash flow coming in right after the sale. But then you also have this lot in the back, and I guess what you could do is you could take that lot and you could just sell it for whatever a lot is worth in Northgate Park, which is not nothing, right? Northgate Park is one of the premium neighborhoods of Durham, but being a construction company, the obvious plan was to build on it, right? So now you have this lot. What does the refinance look like, and why is that advantageous to us?
Yeah, the lot's worth like six figures. So, and lenders know that. And when it's free and clear, they're willing to fund you a part of that land. So basically, hey, you've got your cash back and you get a little bit of more cash, and that can pull you through the rest of the project. You don't need additional cash. They're basically pre-funding your entire interest reserve, all your soft costs, things of that nature. So if you end up with a free and clear lot, you have all you need right there to complete a project. Uh,
Okay. So we modeled it out. We knew that new builds in that neighborhood are worth somewhere in the 600, 625, like the low sixes, right? And so we say, okay, we could sell it, right? And we could just pocket that money, or we can take a few extra months and we can build it, right? As a construction company, we make a little bit of extra revenue that way. But specifically on the development side, it's advantageous for us to build it. So how does the story end here?
Yeah, we sell the house right around the perfect timing where our permit is coming in. We used Renovo Financial on this one, who was loving new construction. It actually, the house underappraised from where we thought it could be, but we just knew, hey, we had so much meat on the bone with the lot free and clear. Let's just get the project going. And they completely funded the construction. We got a little bit less capital up front than we expected, but that was okay. We still had enough capital from our original $60,000. And with the with what we had, we just were able to build and sell that house pretty much immediately after it was completed.
Yeah. So as you can see on this chart, right, there was, the way that the money flowed. We were out $60,000 for the initial rehab, which is great. That's pretty high leverage. After the sale, we put money back in our pockets because of the underappraisal, like Devin mentioned. We did have to pull money back out, but we never exceeded the original $60,000 of cash. So it was still the same $60,000 that was out of pocket the entire project. And then we listed the house and we sold it for 615 later in time, and we ended up with $130,000 profit on the project, right? So we came out 60 and we came in 130. So super profitable project. But one thing I really want to touch on here is, you said it underappraised. And we were super efficient with our financing, but I think we maybe made a mistake or two on the design, right? What kind of happened with the design on this one for the back house?
Yeah, I think, a lot of the first thing people notice is curb appeal. You can change, like, without even changing the layout of a house, you can change its curb appeal just by making different siding decisions. And here we went a little bit modern, which maybe didn't fit the neighborhood. That was a small mistake here. But just for the record, like, the appraisal was something like 570. We still sold this thing for over 600. We sold it for 615 when we were asking 600. And so that just goes to maybe a testament on some of our conservative assumptions, that we didn't even fully optimize the design here. I do think the layout was amazing. But had we done something a little bit more in the neighborhood, less modern, maybe more traditional look on the siding, we actually could have improved what this house sold for.
Yeah. I mean, there's always things that you can look at that would have said that you could say to yourself, "Man, it would have been so much better if we did this." So like, you don't want to hang your hat on that, right? You don't want to just sulk because I think we did a great job selling this property and we built a fantastic property. I kept saying at the time I would live here myself, so I obviously really enjoyed the property. But it's nice to be transparent about some of the design decisions and kind of what we learned. This was all the way back in what, 2023, 2024. It was several years ago, right? When we were first getting into the build to sell game, especially utilizing things like EHC and SCAD.
Yeah, and we did so many things right. Like, people were questioning flag lots, and they're like, "How do you sell a house on a flag lot?" And it turns out, like, when I was out there, I was like, "What are you talking about? The flag lot's really nice. It's the house in the front that's the problem here. You have another house behind your house. Those are the people you have to worry about." However, just knowing, what people want, we have a big tree in that backyard still. It feels like there's separation. We built a privacy fence, and we were able to sell the front house too. So, if you're in the right location, we always say location, 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 and you don't give the feeling that these houses are on top of each other, even though they kind of are. It still can work out. And even if you do make some mistakes, like going modern when you should have gone traditional, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that because this was one of our first build to sell development deals, we didn't really take outside investors on this one. It's the type of deal that we would take outside investors on now. But I guess talk about the nature of the returns here. Like obviously, we put in 60, we come out 130. Our levered return is great, but our project return seems kind of meager. Like how does that align with things that we do today?
Yeah, it's about recycling the equity, and really there's equity that's sort of made so that you have this buffer in the fact that we are creating equity as we go that's leverageable, like a free and clear lot that is completely separate. A lot of times people are asking, well, why don't you just build an ADU? And it's like, well, an ADU isn't leverageable, like a separate deeded lot or house that can get a fee simple appraisal. And so, what really made this so great is that we were able to flow and immediately compound those returns over the 18 months, and use leverage at 10% to, take something that has a project return of 14 and more than double our money.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same environment, the lending environment today, right? We've touched on that a couple times, but back then, what was really, really important to us was getting two separate loans, right? Getting a loan, the fix and flip, doing that fix and flip at a high leverage and getting access to that back lot, and then doing a completely separate loan where we could take that back lot, use it as our equity contribution, right? Being as efficient as possible, it's the key word here, and then getting the rest of the construction funded. Right. Today, I think a lot of lenders are catching on to the new construction, like, how much less risky it is than a lot of the fix and flip, and they're kind of working that stuff into the loan, so you don't have to be so calculated with all of that. But still, there are things that you can look out for in today's lending environment that could be more efficient than the way you're typically doing it. People like funding interest reserves or moving origination points to the back end.
Yeah, we've found that our strategy actually there are more lending opportunities than when we originally did this project. But- So it's even better of an environment now. Even if the fix and flip environment has gotten tougher, everything else about this style deal has gotten easier to finance.
Yeah, and our timelines have improved on this, right? This one was 18 months. There were some things that happened with the front house with respect to like it only being a 2 bedroom, right? And then we were able to turn it into a 3 bedroom and sell it. And then some. There was some, obviously the tragedy in Asheville happened while we were finishing up the build on the
Yeah.
back house, and that delayed us a little bit with Duke Energy sort of running out to Asheville and putting us on hold, which is obviously completely understandable. But and these things happen in development, but our timeline is much faster these days, right?
Yeah, I mean that's going to happen in construction. Unfortunately, if you're going fast elsewhere, your construction can catch up, even if you're left with a ditch uh, exposed as Duke Energy has a crisis and can't inspect it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we didn't, as I said, we didn't raise capital for this one. We did this all internally, but it functions exactly the same way, right? We just kind of used our internal capital for this. In the future, like we would be raising money for these types of deals. We would be in search of LPs to help us fund this kind of thing, paying out in something like 12 to 18 months with potentially, even better levered returns than this kind of stuff because the timeline would be faster. So, yeah, that's exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, and really, we tested the proof of concept with our own money before taking other people's money, and now we know we can execute on it and can show that. So that's one thing we wouldn't raise money for a deal that we don't have a strong proof of concept where we've already put our own money in.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Devin mentioned this being our second one. One of our first ones was a built to rent deal where we tested our built to rent concept, right, with our own money, taking one lot, turning it into four. Something we'll talk about in a future episode on this case study series. So, um, just to kind of recap, right? Location was super important here. It's something that we tied ourselves to, and a way we knew that this was going to work. Through buy right development, we were able to create value and be efficient in the way we're utilizing funding. And on this one, we used our own money, but we were able to turn project returns, which is standard in the 10 to 15% range, but we were able to be more efficient with our financing and turn that into a more than double your money type levered investment return. So, if you are interested in learning more about this project, there is a case study on our website exactly about this where you can kind of dive deep into it. You can come to our meetups, come to our events, shoot us an email or call us at any single time. We can talk more about it. We're happy to talk about this project and how similar it is to the investments that we're doing going forward. Connect with us on social media. We have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, our podcast that you're listening to, either on Spotify or on YouTube. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. As I said, our events, we do have a bi-weekly email that goes out if you're interested in being on that. We share insights on things that are happening from either, Sam, our chief construction officer, Gabe, our broker in charge. Devin also shares insight on any properties that have sold in the past couple of weeks that kind of indicate what the development market looks like so that you can stay in touch with things that are happening every other week. Yeah, and thanks for listening. And Devin, anything to add before we say see you later?
No, come seriously. We want you to come to our events, talk to us, talk about real estate. We're super passionate about it. You can find our emails, set up times to chat. We'll tell you what we're up to. Meet you at a job site if it makes sense. Let you know what we're up to.
Yeah, we're super involved and we want to continue to be that way. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you at the next one in the series.